Nana Chair, the rare privilege and honor to invite onto the podium the second gentleman of the land, the Vice President of the Republic of Ghana, His Excellency Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. Please let's receive Dr. with a big round of applause. A big round of applause for His Excellency the Vice President. A big round of applause for His Excellency the Vice President.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Nana Bantamahene, representative of Otumfuo Setutu II, the regional minister, ministers of state, members of parliament, MMDCEs, our father, Dr. Adol Kufuor, chairman of SNIT, board chairman, CEOs, and deputy CEOs, the vice chancellor of the KNUST and the pro-vice chancellor, heads of departments, deans, staff, and students, clergy and imams, our General Secretary, Indefatigable John Boydu of the MPP, and National Youth Organizer Nana Boachi, friends from the media, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I bring you greetings from His Excellency the President, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. It is a pleasure to have the opportunity to share with you our assessment of the economy and our assessment of the implementation of our manifesto promises based on the data. And also, I would like to take this opportunity to shed some light on a number of issues that are no doubt of concern as far as the economy is concerned. So basically, we are going to let the data speak for itself. So let's start at the beginning. The MPP, under the leadership of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, was largely aware of the nature of the problems that existed in the economy before we came into office. We had analyzed the economy before we came. We analyzed these problems, talked about them, and put forward solutions which were largely captured in our 2016 election manifesto. Some of the problems that existed in the economy, many of which were worsened following the 8 years of the NDC government, included declining economic growth, high inflation, high interest rates, high rate of exchange rate depreciation, high fiscal deficit, a rapid accumulation of the debt. In fact, the debt increased 12-fold under their government in 8 years. A weak and collapsing financial system, high unemployment, the NHIS was back to cash and carry, emergency healthcare system was collapsing with only 55 semi-functional ambulances in the country. We had to contend with 4 years of doomsday. Average annual increase in electricity prices between 2010 and 2015 was 45% every year, increase averagely in electricity prices. We had increases in taxes on many items. There was a freeze in the recruitment in the public sector, cuts in research allowances for lecturers, abolition of teacher training allowances, abolition of nursing training allowances, and teachers were paid just 3 months arrears for working for 2 to 3 years. There were high import duties, and we had corrupt practices associated with the acquisition of passports, driver's licenses, registering businesses, and so on. Problems renewing NHIS membership, the cumbersome process of clearing goods at the ports. Parents could not afford senior high school fees for their kids. We had no national ID card. We had no working address system for the country. We had corrupt practices associated with the manual court processes. And the IMF program was resorted to restore public policy credibility with its attendant conditionalities. This was the situation. Notwithstanding the difficult economy we inherited and all these problems, we had to get on with it and start to fix the problems. We were cognizant of our many promises. In fact, at the direction of the President, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, we put together a dashboard of manifesto promises. Immediately, we were declared winners of the 2016 election, and before we were sworn into office. He asked us to put together this dashboard of manifesto promises before we were sworn into office. And we have been using this dashboard to track our manifesto promises since. Ladies and gentlemen, the challenge was huge. How can an economy that could not afford to pay teacher and nursing training allowances suddenly deliver lower taxes, restore teacher and nursing training allowances, create jobs, implement free senior high school education, create NAPCO, planting for food and jobs, one village, one dam, one constituency, one ambulance, reduce electricity prices, formalize the economy, industrialize the economy, reduce the cost of doing business, and so on, while at the same time reducing the budget deficit and reducing the rate of borrowing. It seemed an impossible task, and our opponents were emphatic that we could not fulfill our promises. But we were confident that with good economic management and by the grace of God, we could make what seemed impossible possible. It required a resetting of the fiscal and monetary policy framework in the context of the existing IMF program that we had inherited. The IMF program had been completely run off track by our predecessors. We renegotiated the IMF program in a manner that provided fiscal consolidation, at the same time creating the fiscal space to deliver on our promises to Ghanaians. It took some skill and experience on the part of the Ghana team to renegotiate the IMF program that ensures consolidation, but at the same time, strong growth, and which I am happy to say Ghana successfully exited the IMF program in April last year. After 3 years in office, the results of the fiscal consolidation are evident, and the data shows that significant progress has been made to restore macroeconomic stability and economic growth. The growing confidence in the macroeconomy owes a lot to the prudent management of our public finances and monetary affairs over the last 3 years. To underpin fiscal discipline going forward, Ghana has for the first time in history passed into law a Fiscal Responsibility Act that limits the fiscal deficit in any year to a maximum of 5% of GDP and requires a positive primary balance to ensure debt sustainability. In addition to a Fiscal Responsibility Act, we established a Fiscal Council to provide oversight and advice on the implementation of fiscal policy. This has never been done in our history. So as a result of good fiscal discipline, the fiscal deficit on a cash basis has declined from 6.8% of rebased GDP in 2016 to 3.8% in 2018, 4.8% in 2019, below the fiscal rule of 5%. This, for the first time in a decade. So we are managing the public finances better. For the first time in a decade, ladies and gentlemen, Ghana recorded primary balance surpluses. Primary balance surplus means that our tax revenue exceeded government spending, excluding debt service payments. For 3 years in a row, this is for the first time in a whole decade of 10 years, for 3 years in a row, we have achieved primary budget surpluses for 3 years in a row. The primary balance surplus was 0.5% of GDP in 2017, 1.4% in 2018, and 0.9% in 2019. This compares with a deficit of 1.1% in 2016. And a positive primary balance is important because when you have a positive primary balance, it means that you are slowing down the rate of debt accumulation. That is what it means. A positive primary balance means you are slowing down the rate of debt accumulation. And that means you are really implementing good fiscal management and prudent fiscal management. So let us look at what has happened to the debt, right? As a result of this fiscal discipline that we've imposed upon ourselves and achieving the positive primary balance. The total public debt has increased from 122 billion Ghana cedis in 2016 to 214 billion Ghana cedis, that is 62.2% of GDP at the end of November 2019. But this includes the cost of the banking sector cleanup, which, as you know, is over 13 billion Ghana cedis and counting. Excluding the cost of the banking sector cleanup, the debt stock stands at 203 billion, or 59.1% of GDP. However, if you look at these debt dynamics, the strong fiscal adjustment that has taken place and better debt management has meant that the rate of debt accumulation has slowed down considerably to the lowest in a decade. Between 2008 and 2012, right? The first 2008 stock increased by 267% between 2008 and 2012. Ghana's debt stock increased by 267%. Between 2012 and 2016, Ghana's debt stock increased by another 243%. But between 2016 and 2019, the increase has been by 79%. So there's a big difference. So you look at the graph here, you'll see that if you look at the debt to GDP ratio, for example, the debt to GDP ratio increased by 49% between 2008 to 2012, increased by 19% between 2012 and 2016, and by 3.9% between 2016 and 2019. So you are seeing that there is fiscal discipline that is being implemented. There's a big difference between before 2017 and after 2017. It's a clear difference. So, ladies and gentlemen, the government of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo has therefore kept its promise to reduce the rate of borrowing that was taking place before we came into office. I would also like to note that although in absolute terms, the interest payments on the debt have increased over the last 2 years, with much better debt management, interest as a percentage of our GDP, the GDP is our income, has actually declined from 6.9% of GDP to 5.6% in 2016, to 5.6% in 2018, and 5.7% in 2019. So we are reducing the burden of the debt on the budget by reducing debt as a ratio, or the interest payments as a ratio of GDP, from 6.9% to 5.7%. That is a major achievement that has taken place. So even though the quantum of the debt has gone up, we are paying less as a percentage of our annual income to service that debt. And that is good economic management. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to turn to inflation and interest rates. A combination of prudent monetary policy and fiscal consolidation supported by zero central bank financing of the government and strong external sector developments have underpinned a steady disinflation process over the last 36 months. Inflation has dropped steadily from a high of 15.4% at the end of 2016 to 7.9% at the end of December 2019, which is about the lowest since 1992. The lowest since 1992. Ladies and gentlemen, these two graphs are very instructive. If you look at these two graphs, the one on the left will tell you about different types of inflation. You have the headline inflation, you have the food inflation, and then the non-food inflation. The food inflation is the lower one in the orange. But what you are seeing is that before the MPP government came into office, there was a wide divergence between the different inflation rates, headline, food inflation, and non-food inflation. There was a wide divergence. It means inflationary expectations were not quite well anchored. What you are seeing since we've come into office, with the good work and management that we are doing, you are seeing a convergence of food inflation, non-food inflation, and headline inflation, which means we are managing the inflation much better, and that is a good thing for Ghana. Now, how has this decline in inflation, I mean, if you look at what we call core inflation, which is underlying inflation, or inflation excluding the volatile items like energy and food prices, that is the graph on the right. Core inflation, underlying inflation. If you take out the volatile items in the basket, how does it look like? You will see that under the NDC, core inflation kept going up, just like you've seen with headline inflation. It's like they were taking us up a mountain, giving all of us wahala going up the mountain, right? So you see core inflation going up. Under the MPP, you see core inflation. You are now coming down the mountain and easing the burden of the people. And how has this reflected in the everyday lives of people? I've taken two items. One is petroleum prices, or the rate of increase in petroleum prices. If you look at the rate of increase in petroleum prices, it has declined. In fact, if you look at NDC, between 2009 and 2012, the average annual increase in petrol prices was 29.5% every year. Between 2012 and 2013 and 2016, every year the average increase was 24%. But because we've been able to bring inflation down and manage the economy better, under Nana Akufo-Addo between 2017 and 2019, it has been 13.5%. So this is reflecting, this good economic management is reflecting. But further, in addition to this, you've seen a decrease in electricity prices. We promised to reduce electricity prices. People thought it wasn't possible. I will take you back because sometimes people tell us we have short memories. And we always have to remind ourselves that we will not forget. We will not forget their record. If you look at the record, the data is clear from the table you see. Between 2010 and 2015, in 2010, electricity prices went up in this country by 89%. 2011, 10%. 2012, of course, election year, no electricity price increase. 2013, they gave it to us, 78%. 2014, 23.36, 28.36%. 2015, 59.2%. This is electricity price increases. We promised that we will do a decrease in electricity price increases. Okay? 2016, of course, there was no increase, another election year. But 2017, our first year in government, there was no increase in electricity price. 2018, we reduced electricity prices by 22%. And by the way, this is the first government in the history of the Fourth Republic, first government that has reduced electricity prices. First government. In 2019, we increased the prices by 11%, but when you take the net between 2019 and 2018, in net terms, since we've been in office, we've reduced electricity prices by 10% in net terms. And it has not happened so far for any government in the Fourth Republic. And therefore, it is a promise that we have fulfilled. Reducing inflation, ladies and gentlemen, by 50% between 2016 and 2019 is really a remarkable achievement. It's a major, major achievement that we've done to reduce inflation. In fact, the sterling performance of the Bank of Ghana and the leadership of Governor Addison in bringing down inflation is among the reasons why the Bank of Ghana was just last week selected amongst all the central banks in the world. The Bank of Ghana last week was selected as Central Bank of the Year 2019. Central Bank of the Year 2019. It has never happened. It has never happened that our central bank has even featured there in the top 3. Historically, it has never happened. Normally, we have one African Central Bank of the Year. We have won that before. But to win the world or the global central bank of the year in Ghana under Nana Addo Akufo-Addo. And the steady disinflation process has provided scope for a significant monetary policy easing. The Bank of Ghana's monetary policy rate has been cut from 25.5% in 2017 to 16%, a total of 950 basis points or 9.5%. So if you see on the left, the Bank of Ghana policy rate is on the left. You see that under the NDC, you see a steady increase in the interest rate. Again, they are taking us up the mountain, and we are having more wahala as they are taking us up. But with the MPP in office, you've seen that we have turned that around, and we are coming down the mountain under Nana Addo Akufo-Addo. And you have seen that this has resulted in a decrease in lending rates, even though we still want to see lending rates come down. We've come down from 32% in 2016 to 23.6% in 2019. That's a major reduction, but we will keep working to do more. Ladies and gentlemen, I now turn to our performance in the external sector. Ghana's external payments position has strengthened. For the first time in 20 years, the trade balance, that is the difference between what we export and what we import, that is the trade balance, the difference between our exports and our imports. For the first time in 20 years, the trade balance has recorded a surplus for 3 years in a row. We recorded a surplus in 2017, a larger surplus in 2018, and an even larger surplus in 2019. And this is not because we are importing less, but it is largely because of increased exports as a result of the positive transformation of this economy under the MPP government. The positive trade balance has resulted in a significant narrowing of the current account deficit as a percentage of GDP. So you see the graph on the right, which shows the current account, and you see that the deficit was large. It has gotten smaller and smaller and smaller under the NDPP. Improvements in the current account performance and increased capital flows have helped to boost international reserves over the last 24 months. Gross international reserves have reached 7.05 billion in December 2018, 3.6 months of import cover, increased to 8.4 billion, 4 months of import cover at the end of 2019. But Ghana's net international reserves have also increased from 3.4 billion in 2016 to 5.1 billion in 2019. So our reserves are growing and are healthy. I now want to turn to an interesting topic on the minds of many Ghanaians, which is the exchange rate of the cedi and its development. Ladies and gentlemen, the exchange rate, and I want you to pay attention on this section because there's so much propaganda around it. So the exchange rate is simply the price of one currency relative to other currencies. So the cedi to the dollar. At the basic level, it is influenced by factors such as the relative demand and supply for foreign currency. It is a price, just like the price of any good or service. How much of one currency does one need to give up to get the unit of another currency? And generally, it reflects the purchasing power of one currency relative to another. Countries have a choice between two basic types of exchange rate regimes. You can have a fixed exchange rate regime, which is one which is administratively fixed by the government or the monetary authority, with fiscal and monetary policy deployed to maintain the fixed exchange rate regime. So the CFA countries, for example, operate a fixed exchange rate regime. In practice, countries will devalue or revalue their currencies in line with their fundamentals. The other type of exchange rate regime is the floating exchange rate regime, where the exchange rate is determined by the forces of the Ghana operates a floating regime or a managed floating regime, and for that reason, in Ghana, we can or should never expect that the exchange rate will be fixed. We are not operating a fixed exchange rate regime in Ghana. It will fluctuate depending on the demand and supply. What policymakers can do is to try to control the rate of depreciation or appreciation of the currency through sound policies. In the context of a floating exchange rate regime, therefore, arresting the depreciation of a currency can only mean slowing down the rate of depreciation or stopping the rapid and volatile depreciation of the currency. That is what arresting depreciation means in the context of a floating exchange rate regime. In general, there is a direct relationship between higher inflation, especially non-food inflation, and the exchange rate appreciation or depreciation. And if you look at the table that is here, it tells you fundamentally what determines an exchange rate in an economy is largely driven by inflation differentials. Those are fundamentals. Other factors can happen in the short run to affect the currency, but whenever you have higher inflation relative to the currency you are dealing with, you will have higher depreciation. When your inflation lowers, you will have lower depreciation. And this is what we are seeing in this graph. So, with this background, how has the cedi performed under the leadership of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo in the last 3 years? The answer is very simple. You look at this table, which looks at the average rate of depreciation of the cedi since 1992. Between 1993 and 1996, first term of the Fourth Republic, the average rate of depreciation of the cedi was 27.95%. 97 to 2000, 25.19%. 2001 to 2004, we drastically reduced it under President Kufuor to 11.4%, and 2005 to 2008, the second term, to 6.7%. 2009 to 2012, 10.9%. Under the NDC government of 2013 to 2016, it was 18%. Under Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, it is, for the first 3 years, 8.7%. So, you see from this table that the cedi exchange rate under the MPP from 2017 to 2019 is twice as stable as it was under the NDC from 2013 to 2016. It has depreciated by 50% less, right? We are twice as stable under the MPP. And you should know that under the NDC, our currency was basically depreciating at the speed of Usain Bolt. Now, a 2 mirika pa. Under the MPP, we have arrested the rapid depreciation of the city, and we will make no apologies for that. We have arrested the rapid depreciation of the city. But why does the NDC, in the face of such incontrovertible evidence, why do they keep insisting that they can do a better job of managing the city in the face of such incontrovertible evidence? Ladies and gentlemen, it is like you have taken an exam with somebody and they score 40% and you score 80%, and they come out to say they know the subject better than you. What you will be that? What you will be that? What kochoro wanya 40%? Ma kochoro manya 80%. Usi unimsa cheme. Where will be that? Eh? In fact, in the history of the Fourth Republic, Akufo-Addo, the president, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, has the best performance for any first-term government since 1992. The best performance. The data is there. The best performance. The overall best, of course, is Kufuor's government so far, but that was the second term. So MPP will take number 1, will take number 2 position. That we are the best. Under Nana Akufo-Addo, as far as managing the depreciation of the city, the best performance for any first-term government since 1992. All the worst performances happened under the NDC. They hold the record for the first worst performance, the second worst performance, and the third worst performance since 1992. But notwithstanding that they are the worst performers, they still want to challenge the best performance. Hey, Asemo.
Ladies and gentlemen, at the end of 2008, at the end of 2008, the exchange rate of the cedi to the dollar was 1.18 cedis to the dollar. They came into office, and after 8 years, they moved the exchange rate to 4.2 cedis to the dollar. So they quadrupled the nominal value of the exchange rate. It's not even triple jump. They added one jump to it to make it quadruple jump. Right? It's not triple jump. They made it quadruple jump from 1 to 4. From 1 to 4. Now, for those of you who know your mathematics or arithmetic, you know the percentage change from 1 to 4 is very significant, isn't it? We have gone from 4.2 to 5.35 in just 3 years and a bit. If you go from 4 to 5 versus 1 to 4, is it the same percentage increase? Right? One, you are getting close to 200 and something percentage increase. Another, you are around 20%. It is not the same. Indeed, the MPP, for us, if the cedi is to match what the NDC record is, we will have to do a quadruple jump, which means we have to move from 4 close to 16 to be able to match their record. Is that clear? Yeah, if you are going to match their record in terms of the nominal change in the currency, if you quadruple the 4, you will go towards 16. But we have only gone from 4 to 5.35, and they are making noise. So, thankfully, ladies and gentlemen, this year,
the cedi is performing quite well and reflecting the fundamentals. And currently, the cedi is the best performing currency in the world against the US dollar, as we speak this year, with an appreciation of 3.4%. Ladies and gentlemen, the data shows that Ghana's macroeconomic fundamentals are strong. Indeed, the strength of Ghana's fundamentals was confirmed recently by Moody's ratings, which changed Ghana's sovereign ratings from B3 with a stable outlook to B3 with a positive outlook. This is unprecedented for an election year. For an election year to have that sort of change in the ratings outlook. Standard & Poor's also upgraded Ghana's sovereign credit rating from B- to B with a stable outlook last year. This was the first upgrade by Standard & Poor's for Ghana in 10 years. This is a strong affirmation of the positive assessment by international financial markets of Ghana's economic fundamentals. In fact, at the time President Kufuor left office, Ghana's sovereign credit rating with Standard & Poor's was B+. This fell after 8 years of NDC government to B-. And the President Nana Akufo-Addo's government is bringing this rating back up again. This is clearly a testament to the solid policies and reforms yielding fruits. Just last week, Ghana successfully issued the longest dated Eurobond ever issued by a sub-Saharan African country, with investors placing $15 billion of orders for Ghana's 41-year bond. We issued a 41-year bond, the longest in the history of sub-Saharan Africa, and it was 8 times oversubscribed. 8 times oversubscribed. That is a remarkable vote of confidence in the economy of Ghana. The 7-year bond issued attracted the lowest coupon ever for Ghana at 6.375%. 6.375%. When the NDC issued a similar bond in 2016, it attracted 9.25%. Just look at the difference. 9.25, 6.3. Huge gap in interest rates. It means they are more confident in the economy under the MPP than under the NDC, and they are willing to give us lower interest rates for that. I now, ladies and gentlemen, want to touch on a subject that is very, very important to Ghanaians. This is the banking sector cleanup that the Bank of Ghana has undertaken. There's too much propaganda around the issue, and we need to understand it and understand it well. So, as I noted earlier, we inherited a financial system that was weak and fragile, with several institutions that had collapsed or were on the verge of collapse. The Bank of Ghana, in cleaning up and strengthening the financial sector, revoked the licenses of 9 banks, 23 savings and loans, and 386 microfinance companies. Many of these companies were not working at all. Anyway, they were dead. The Bank of Ghana did not just do this because they felt it was time to create suffering for depositors and difficulties for the owners of those institutions, as the NDC is forcing us to believe. Rather, the central bank did this cleanup to protect the financial system and save hard-earned monies of hard-working men and women, like those bustling at Swami Magazine, Kumasi Juemu, and Edum right now as I speak. Furthermore, we should all note that many of these financial institutions were dead, and many cases were not in many cases, they were not even paying their depositors or employees at all or regularly. There were countless instances where customers would travel several kilometers for just 200 cedis withdrawal, and they were told to go and come another day. This had become an unending spin for these good and innocent people. Cobras. Indeed, the current central bank leadership inherited what was pretty much like a body with a cancer in the toe. If you don't give up that toe in time to end the rot, you will soon move from one with a rotten toe to one without a leg, because the rot will eventually spread to your hip, and then you're going to have to lose the entire leg. The swift and decisive action taken by the new management team at the Bank of Ghana provided relief for the financial system as a whole through the funds provided by the government for depositor payouts. Ladies and gentlemen, let us remember that the failures of these financial institutions that we witnessed were a direct result of a system of poor licensing, non-existent capital, weak corporate governance, related party transactions, and so on. And this has actually hurt so many innocent people, depositors and employees alike. The NDC government and the previous management of the Bank of Ghana had ample time to address the impending failures. They were aware of the problems in 2015 in the case of banks, and as far back as 2012 in the case of savings and loans and microfinance companies. In fact, President Mahama, in the State of the Nation address in 2016, stated as follows, and I want to quote the former president. He said, and I quote, "Mr. Speaker, over the past 5 years, there has been a proliferation of microfinance companies. These companies come under the direct supervision of the Bank of Ghana. Unfortunately, lack of effective supervision has resulted in many cases in which microfinance companies licensed by Bank of Ghana have breached the rules and created supposed pyramid schemes that have eventually come crashing down. One such case is DKM. DKM, with super high interest rates between 50 and 55% promise, is believed to have caused a loss to its clients of 77 million. Many depositors have lost their livelihood." End quote. This was the State of the Nation address in 2016. So the government were aware of the problem, and they had been aware of this problem for over 5 years for savings and loans, and since 2015 for the banks. But they had no courage to deal with the cancer at the heart of the banking system. They had no courage to deal with it. Even in opposition, I alerted the country that on the basis of available data, 8 banks were likely to collapse. I'm sure many of you remember it. I, as an opposition member, said, looking at the data, 8 banks would collapse. You need to do something about it. But they did nothing. They refused to act. Thanks to the Bank of Ghana's cleanup exercise and the government's decision to step in to provide financial support to ensure an orderly exit of the failed institutions, over 1 million depositors have had access to their deposits already, and over 7,000 jobs have been saved as a result of employees who have been taken on by the GCB or Consolidated Bank Ghana Limited or the receivers. Employees whose salaries and employee benefits had been unpaid by the defunct institutions have been paid or are being paid by receivers. Can you imagine what would have happened in this country if 4.6 million depositors had lost their deposits? Can you imagine what would have happened in this country if we had allowed this collapse for 4.6 million depositors to lose their deposits and over 10,000 individuals to have lost their jobs? The benefits of the banking sector cleanup exercise are evident for all to see. We now have a stronger and more resilient banking sector than ever before, and the deposits in the banking system have increased significantly as customers' confidence in the system has rebounded. We should never forget, ladies and gentlemen, we should never forget that under the NDC, we had the messy liquidations of the BCCI in 1999 and the closure and liquidation by the Bank of Ghana in the year 2000 of the Cooperative Bank and the Bank for Housing and Construction. Also under NDC, the collapse of DKM and the proliferation of unlicensed financial services such as PIRAM, R5, God is Love Fan Club, Men's Gold, and others that took advantage of their customers. With this background, I find the NDC's newfound care for indigenous firms quite baffling, given the number of indigenous firms that collapsed under 4 years of doomsday under their government. Why didn't their government bail those firms out? Those firms that collapsed as a result of doomsday. Where were the specific policies to support them? Do they know how many jobs were lost? What did they do about that if they cared so much about jobs? What about the jobs of the microfinance companies that collapsed under their watch? Did those people not matter? Well, still, they are telling people, the people of Ghana, that they would have kept the indigenous institutions alive, even after they found that they had obtained their licenses, in some cases, based on false and non-existent capital, or after it became obvious that they had siphoned off depositors' funds and the liquidity support that the Bank of Ghana had provided to those institutions. Is their idea of an indigenous financial sector one that is characterized by fraud or unlawful activities? Ladies and gentlemen, if you own a business and you employ somebody and they bring their certificate, you employ them, give them a job, and then later on you find out that they have actually presented a fake certificate to obtain the job, and not only that, they are stealing your money to build a house, will you not sack them from work? Will you not sack them from work? You will not keep them in employment. Will you say that because this person is from my village, I can keep him with a fake certificate and allow him to continue stealing my money? You wouldn't say that. A lot of these banks were engaged in fraudulent practices and poor corporate governance, and the licenses, some of the licenses were obtained fraudulently. And therefore, the Bank of Ghana had to take action against them. We cannot say simply because you are indigenous banks, we should allow you to collapse the entire banking system. Nobody takes any pleasure in revoking a license of any institution. It must be a painful exercise. And I'm sure the Bank of Ghana, took its time in doing this. But it is important to note that all the 9 indigenous banks that were closed were to a large extent taken over by 2 Ghanaian indigenous banks, GCB and CBG. So we are ensuring stronger Ghanaian ownership in the banking sector. Also, the Ghana Amalgamated Trust, with 100% Government of Ghana ownership, has successfully invested in 4 indigenous banks that were unable to meet the new capital requirements. It is noteworthy let us note that no bank was closed only on account of not meeting the new minimum capital requirement of 400 million. No bank was closed because they couldn't meet that. There were other matters that resulted in closures. Ladies and gentlemen, government has already spent over 13 billion. This is unplanned. We had not budgeted for it. 13 billion Ghana cedis paying depositors of banks and other financial institutions. And President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo gave the assurance on 24th of December last year in his Christmas message. And it's an assurance I want to repeat because it doesn't seem to have been carried far. And it is an assurance that no depositor of a savings and loan or a microfinance institution will lose any of their deposits, not even one peso. No depositor will lose. So we want fairness. What we have done for those who have deposited in the banks, we are going to do the same for those who have deposited in the savings and loans and the microfinance. Everybody will get 100% of their deposits back. That is going to happen. And it is starting. Because all these depositors, they lost, through no fault of their own. So the government has asked the receiver, working with the Bank of Ghana, to expedite the validation and payment of the depositors so that all the depositors will receive their monies after their validation. I also want to add that the President has also said that if we are treating all the savings and loans depositors in this manner and making sure we are giving all of them 100% of their deposits, then we should extend it to the DKM depositors and also give them 100% of their deposits. So they will also now be included in the refunds so that they will receive their deposits. So we are therefore cleaning up the mess. We are cleaning up the mess the NDC created in the financial sector. The NDC was unable to do it. They were aware of the problem, but they refused to act. Given their management of the economy, they could not find the money even to pay teacher training allowance or nursing training allowance. Where would they have found 13 billion Ghana cedis to pay to depositors to rescue them from the collapse of the banks? They couldn't do it. They didn't have the space to do it. But now we know, and I am sure, that left to the NDC, our banking system would have collapsed by now if we had left this to the NDC. But now they are going around saying, oh, we are going to pay everybody there's money. You couldn't pay teacher training allowance. Where are you going to get a 13 billion? From your management. The Ashantis have a proverb. Asantifuo mu obe, mubube se kwatu kwase Obama wontoma tie ni ding. Enyasa. Se kwatu kwase Obama wontoma tie ni ding. If they could have done it, they would have done it a long time ago. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are cleaning up the banking sector. We are now moving into the real sector of the economy. We promised in our manifesto that we are going to move this economy from a focus on taxation to a focus on production. So notwithstanding the revenue challenges that we inherited, we took the decision to reduce taxes in the economy. We understood that the tax burden on individuals and businesses was high, following the high tax increases under the NDC regime. We were aware that this could worsen our revenue challenges in the short term, but we were of the firm conviction that reducing taxes will spur growth and increase revenues in the medium to long term. In fulfillment of our promise to move the economy from a focus on taxation to a focus on production and growth, we have thus far reduced at least 15 separate taxes. Reducing these taxes was a brave decision. For any manager of an economy, you come in with an economy which is in very, very dire straits, and your first action is to reduce taxes. It's not conventional. It is not orthodox. It is unconventional and unorthodox, but we knew it was the right policy for Ghana, and we went for it. So, in fact, no such broad-based reduction in taxes has ever been implemented in Ghana's history since 1957. No such broad-based reduction in taxes has been implemented. You see from the table, we abolished the 17.5% VAT on real estates, abolished the 17.5% VAT on selected imported medicines, abolished the 17.5% VAT on financial services, abolished the import duty on spare parts, abolished the 1% import levy, abolished the 17.5% VAT on domestic airline tickets, abolished the levies imposed on KIA, reduced import duty for all goods, excluding vehicles, 50% and vehicles 30%, abolished the excise duty on petroleum, provided a full corporate tax deduction for private universities who plow back 100% of their profits into the university, reduced the National Electrification Scheme levy from 5% to 3%, reduced the special petroleum tax rate from 17% to 3% to 13%, replaced the 17.5% VAT with a flat rate of 3%, and granted capital gains tax exemption on stocks traded on the Ghana Stock Exchange. So this is phenomenal, you know, and we expected this to help us boost. Despite these tax reductions, the data shows that revenue collection in nominal cedi terms has actually increased by 25% annually since 2017. In terms of real growth, the average annual real growth before 2017 of revenue was 7.2%, and after 2017, it is 8.4%, despite all these reductions. It is also important to note that the average dollar equivalent of collections before 2017 was $5.89 billion a year, and after 2017, it's been $7.57 billion a year. Beyond the reduction in taxes, we proceeded to focus on production in the real sector. Virtually every government has noted the need for Ghana to change the structure of the economy through diversification and by shifting from the focus on raw materials to value addition. This is the key pillar in Nana Akufo-Addo's Ghana Beyond Aid agenda. To accomplish this, we are implementing the following programs: planting for food and jobs. We've seen a major increase in production of cassava, rice, maize, soya, plantain, and so on. We are actually exporting these goods now. We've established the Ghana Commodities Exchange. One district, one factory is on course, and 79 or so factories and the schemes are at various stages of construction. The process of starting an integrated bauxite and aluminum industry is a major step in this diversification and innovative financing. The Ghana Bauxite and Aluminum Development Corporation law has been passed. The Ghana Integrated Aluminum Development Corporation has been established, and we are doing a similar thing for the iron and steel industry. A national automotive policy has been brought out, and we will see I think next month, Volkswagen will be in Ghana to establish a car assembly plant in Ghana. Volkswagen. And by August, we expect Toyota to do the same, and we will continue giving incentives to Kantanka as well as all of these to get the local production going. So, ladies and gentlemen, economic growth, which was on the declining trend, has been restored. GDP growth was 8.1% in 2017, 6.8% in 2018, and is projected at 7% in 2019. And this is compared to 3.4% in 2016. Ghana's GDP growth now, for 3 years in a row, is amongst the fastest in the world. For 3 years in a row, our GDP growth is amongst the fastest in the world. Non-oil growth has increased from 4.6% in 2016 to 5.8% in 2018 and a projected 5.9% in 2019. The recent growth performance has been driven by industry and agri sectors, and agri particularly reflecting the effect of the policy interventions in the sector, most notably the planting for food and jobs. This has resulted in an increase in agri sector output from 2.9% in 2016 to 6.8% in 2018 and a projected 6.4% in 2019. Industry growth has increased from 4.3% in 2016 to 15.7% in 2017, 10.6% in 2018, and a projected 8.8% in 2019. And the growth in the service sector has almost doubled from 2.8% in 2016 to 5.4% in 2019. So quite clearly, ladies and gentlemen, when you look at the real sector, we promise that we will move the economy from taxation to production, and the real sector, you will definitely see we have reduced the taxes and we have seen production going up with the interventions we are making in agriculture and industry, and it is good economic management. And mobile wallets and within different companies. By the way, mobile money interoperability that we have introduced in Ghana is the first of its kind in Africa. The first of its kind. There's no country in Africa that has this type of mobile money interoperability. And places like Kenya only have interoperability between the telcos. No country has been able to achieve interoperability between the mobile wallets, the telcos, and the bank accounts. We are the only country that has been able to do that. And because we have done that, we are going to reap a lot of benefits from it. We're going to reap a lot of benefits and bring a lot of people into financial inclusion. Thanks to the Bank of Ghana, next month, in March, Ghana will launch what we call the Universal QR Code payment system next month, which will make it possible for all retailers, including the people who sell Kofi Brookman and Wache on the street. All retailers will be able to have the capacity to receive payments from their customers directly on their mobile phone. Directly, without a point of sale device being necessary. This is a major transformation. All retailers, you'll be able to receive even Trotro, if you want to pay by your mobile wallet, you'll receive it. They'll have their own QR code, right? Maybe Trotro owners will be very happy because maybe they don't get the full account. But everybody will be able to receive. So watch sellers, and so you don't have to keep a lot of cash if you are selling things, so that armed robbers will come and get your cash. If we all start paying using our Momo or bank Card, we'll just pay it through the mobile phone and the matter will be finished. Your money will be in your bank account. We are introducing this, the first country in Africa to introduce a universal QR code is Ghana, and we are introducing it next month. We are introducing it next month. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not all. As I said, we have put in place the pillars, and it's now time for us to reap the benefits of what we have put in place. Ladies and gentlemen, we have completed a pilot, and on February 18th, that is in less than 2 weeks' time, I will launch a nationwide mobile application that will allow ECG customers to buy units for their meters through their mobile phone at any time. So, if it is 2 a.m. in the morning and you have run out of units, you pick up your mobile phone, put in the digits, and the meter will come on, and all of it will go. So, we will launch this on February the 18th by the grace of God. And I must add, you will also be able to buy units for someone else. So it's not just for you, and so it will create problems for people. You get a call at 3 a.m. in the morning, say, "Bra, me units no asanwo." To be mommy. So we are going to create a new problem. You know, but digitization is going to reduce a lot of inefficiency and make life easier for all our people and reduce a lot of corruption in the system. And this is what we are doing. We have linked the emergency 112 number with a digital address system. As you know, we have delivered ambulances, one constituency, one ambulance, and we have linked all the ambulances. We can tell from the command center where each ambulance is at any time in the country, where each ambulance is. We've also linked the ambulances to the digital address system. So if you use your Ghana Post GPS system to call the ambulance center will know exactly where you are, your address, your digital address, the exact location. And it is important that all of us get used to using the Ghana Post GPS, because sometimes you may be in your home and armed robbers are attacking. You need to call the police, but you don't have time to explain exactly where your house is, because it is maybe in some lungu somewhere, right? That you have to, if you use your Ghana Post GPS to call 112 or the emergency button, immediately the command center will know that this is the address where you are calling from. And then the police will come there immediately. You don't need to explain anything. You just say, "I need help. That's all. I'm under attack." So you do it. So we have linked the Ghana Post GPS with the emergency system and the ambulance system, and Ghana has now got a working ambulance system. In addition, to help the ambulances, we have employed drones to deliver critical medicines and blood across many health facilities in the country. And Ghana today is the world's leading drones medical supplier. We are in the lead. The world's leading supplier of medicines by drone. It's a remarkable technology that is saving lives. Snake bites, mothers giving birth in very remote areas, we are able to get to them, and we will continue to do this. So ultimately, digitization of the economy will improve efficiency and reduce corruption and de-risk the business environment. And for me, one of the exciting things about this digitization. Because when I was at the Bank of Ghana as deputy governor, I kept dealing with this issue. And we kept talking, how do we bring down interest rates? It's a big, big issue. The surest way to bring down interest rates is to formalize the economy. So that when you go to the bank, they will know your identity. This is who you are. They know where you live. So there is no risk, or the risk is minimized in lending to you. So for me, when we digitize this economy, you will see interest rates also beginning to come down. And I'm very excited about this country. I believe that in another 2 to 3 years, the Ghana we are seeing today will be a very different Ghana. A very different Ghana. It's not long. Give us another 2 to 3 years. When we put all this together, it will be a new Ghana for you. And I'm very excited that the promise that Nana Akufo-Addo made to modernize this country, we are in a position to do so. Ladies and gentlemen, to allow access to the internet across public tertiary institutions and senior high schools, government has awarded the contract for the provision of free Wi-Fi to all senior high schools and tertiary institutions. There is so much knowledge. There's so much knowledge on the internet, and we have to allow our senior high schools to access that knowledge. And we promise free Wi-Fi, and we are going to deliver free Wi-Fi to all senior secondary schools. So the program is going to kick off this year. The program will kick off this year, and an initial set of tertiary schools and senior high schools will be the kicking off, including KNUST, by the way. You will be in the initial set of schools. Once we are talking about senior high schools, I want to talk a little bit about free SHS. Dr. Yao Ejuchum is here. He's the master, but he has taught me a few things. I will say, I must say, Dr. Matthew Napo and his deputy, they've done an excellent job on free SHS. And Dr. Yao Ejuchum. Ladies and gentlemen, the empirical evidence is very persuasive that the key to economic transformation is human capital, not natural resources. There are many countries with natural resources, but it hasn't helped them in any way. The evidence shows that what matters is human capital. This is why President Nana Akufo-Addo has placed an emphasis of making sure that every Ghanaian child, regardless of the financial circumstances of the parent, will have access to free high school education. This was the promise we made prior to the election in 2016. And it is a promise that we have fulfilled. I must say that the free SHS policy is the most significant social intervention program introduced in Ghana since independence. There's no doubt about it. Since independence, it is the most significant. We are investing for the future. We are investing and building capacity for the future of this country. And we have to think about the future, not about ourselves. However, in introducing this free SHS, we had a big challenge. We did not have sufficient infrastructure in most schools to accommodate the increased numbers. The free SHS has resulted in a 69% increase in enrollment. 69% in enrollment. Many of these students would have been sitting at home. Today, 1.2 million children are benefiting from free SHS. The question that we faced when we tried to implement this free SHS policy, the question that we faced was, if we don't have enough infrastructure, how can we tell whose child should stay at home and whose child should go to school? Who should stay at home? In response to this challenge, we introduced the innovative double-track system as a temporary solution to the problem while we construct new schools. The thinking here with the double-track system is very similar to how our churches have the first service and the second service and the third service with the same building. Because the church has been built, but the people are many. So all of them want to come and hear the word of God on Sunday. So should we say to people, I am at Tinafie, or can we say, you come for first service, you come for second service, you come for third service, and all of you will hear the word of God? So this is our innovative solution and a temporary solution to a problem that we face. We'll say, okay, let's leverage our existing schools. Some people will come at one time, go home, and another set will come. We are not saying this is how it's going to be, but this is the temporary solution whilst we build more and more schools to do this. So I would say that it is better to educate a child even under a tree than to let them be sitting home. It is better to educate a child. Because if we had said that they should not be, we should not do double track, it means we could not have implemented free SHS. We would have been saying, let's wait to finish them. In fact, if you apply the same logic, National Health Insurance, we couldn't have implemented. Because we would have said, let's wait and build all the hospitals before we implement National Health Insurance. It was introduced in 2003, but even today in 2020, we are still building hospitals. But we have to make a start. And this is why Nana Akufo-Addo said, let us implement this double track, let us build the schools, and in good time, they will replace the double track system with a single track for everybody. Those who are criticizing the double track system have not been able to offer one alternative. Not one alternative. They are just saying, I will abolish the double track, but they won't tell you what they are going to replace it with. And they cannot tell you, because abolishing the double track means abolishing free SHS. That is what it is. Because you have to be able to tell me, we can all reason, tell me what you are going to do. They cannot tell us. Up to now, they've been criticizing free SHS since 2008. Up to now, they don't have an alternative. So, this is why government is investing in the construction of schools and new infrastructure. And I must say, it was very heartwarming when we read about a request from the government of Kenya. The government of Kenya has asked our own good ministers of education to come and teach them how to make the double track work for their country. I know that Dr. Yaweduchum was there to give them a brief on what we are doing. And they have sent a letter requesting the Minister for Education, Dr. Matthew Opoku-Prempeh, to come and teach them how to do the double track system in Kenya so that they can leverage it. So let us appreciate what we have. We are thinking long term, but we are not going to compromise the education of our children. Ladies and gentlemen, we need a government that is committed to the free SHS system, a government that is prepared to commit the resources to finance it. Can we trust free SHS to someone who did not believe in it in the first place? Can we trust free SHS to someone who said it was a gimmick? Can we trust it to someone who said if he had 2 billion Ghana cedis, he would not spend it on free SHS? Can you trust free SHS with someone who says he would abolish the double track but has no alternative? We cannot take that risk. You can only trust the free SHS system with Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. He's the only person you can trust the free SHS system with. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the key promises that Nana Akufo-Addo made was to ensure that the poor are not excluded from access to infrastructure. This is the rationale behind the setting up of the development authorities. And after just 3 years in office, there has been a remarkable provision of infrastructure for the poor and deprived communities across the country. We have undertaken and are undertaking many projects that matter to the poor in our villages and communities, in addition to projects in the urban towns and cities. These include water, toilets, markets, school blocks, health facilities, police stations, and so on. The massive investment in water and sanitation infrastructure, for example, has resulted in an increase in the number of open defecation-free communities from 410 in 2016 to over 4,700 communities by the end of 2019. This is major increase. We will outdoor, ladies and gentlemen, we've done a lot of work putting together the data on infrastructure because we want to show the country what we have done in every district and constituency in the country. We've put all this data together and it is just remarkable. I'm sure it will surprise a lot of Ghanaians. But today, we are going to focus on the data on our manifesto promises. By April, in the next quarter, we will present the data on infrastructure, and it was going to be a very remarkable piece of data. So, ladies and gentlemen, this year, the President has said, is the year of roads. It's the year of Amoako Atta, the roads minister. And I can assure you that so much is going on, the resources are being put together, and Ashanti, you will see that this year is the year of roads, Ampa. Very, very soon, you will see that this year, Ampa is the year of roads. We are mobilizing, and a lot of roads, critical roads, have started, and we will be taking off very, very soon. And so, let's be patient, and you will see what we are doing. Let me now come to our manifesto promises. Ladies and gentlemen, it is clear that so much has been done in the management of the economy. But how has this translated into the fulfillment of our manifesto promises to the people of Ghana? In tracking and measuring our progress after 3 years for each of these commitments in a way that is intuitive and easily understood by the generality of Ghanaians, we have adopted 3 metrics or 3 categories in assessing our manifesto promises. We have divided the assessment into 3 categories. One is promises delivered. These are promises we have fully implemented. So we have delivered on those promises. Then we have promises that we are delivering. So if you take a promise like free SHS, we have delivered on it. So we'll count it under promises delivered. Then there are those that we are delivering. We've started delivering, but we haven't completed. Like one district, one factory. We have started the process. We've created a number of factories, but we are ongoing, like one village, one dam, and so on. They have not yet completed the process, but we are on course. It is on track, and we are moving. And then there are those that are pending, for those that we haven't started work on at all, like the passage of the consumer protection law that we said we will do. We haven't yet done it. Ladies and gentlemen, we have tabulated a total of 388 promises in our manifesto. That's quite a large number in total. And what we are looking at for the overall score of our assessment, we are just looking at the raw count of the promises. Of the 388 promises, how many have you delivered? How many are you delivering? How many are pending? That is essentially the raw count. There's no weighting attached to each sector or anything. It's just the raw count of the promises. And I must say, and it is very, very important to note, that this is the first time in the history of Ghana that any political party has come to the people with an assessment of its promises to the people. No other party has done this. This is the first time this is happening, and we think it's good for the governance of this nation. And we encourage all other parties who have governed in the past, it's not too late. They can come with their manifestos and tell us how much was actually accomplished. No government has done this. So let us look at the promises that we have delivered. And there are quite a lot. As I said, we have 388 promises. If you look at the agri sector, we said we will ensure that farming inputs are available in the farming communities at affordable prices, and we have delivered. We promised to support private seed growers to increase supply of improved seeds to farmers. We've delivered. We promised to reintroduce compensation payments under cocoa disease control payments program. We've delivered. We promised to expand local processing of cocoa. We've delivered. Promote capital ranching and facilitate land acquisition for its development. We've delivered. Provide patrol boats to stop foreign fishing vessels. We have delivered. We collaborate with the private sector to develop infrastructure for inland farming. We have delivered. Place fisherfolk directly in charge of subsidized inputs at local outlets. We've delivered. Encourage local poultry processing. We have delivered. Support accelerated development of selected products, including grains and vegetables. We have delivered. Increase subsidies on retail prices of seeds and fertilizers. We've delivered. Support selected products with storage, transportation, and marketing. We've delivered. Reform and revive the national buffer stock. We have delivered. Improve fertilizer distribution. We have delivered. Have discussions with Burkina Faso for a more controlled spillage of the Bagri Dam. We have delivered. Revive the Grains Development Authority. We have delivered. Establish the Ghana Commodity Exchange. We've delivered. Restore overall macro stability. We have delivered. Reduce the rate of government borrowing. We have delivered. Reduce interest rates. We have delivered. Shift from taxation to production. We have delivered. Enact the Fiscal Responsibility Law. We have delivered. Fiscal Council. We have delivered. Financial Stability Council. We have delivered. Banking the unbanked. We have delivered. Abolish the special import levy. We have delivered. Abolish 17.5% VAT on medicines. We have delivered. 17.5% VAT on financial services. We have delivered. Abolish 5% real estate VAT. We have delivered. Abolish 17.5% VAT on domestic airline tickets. We have delivered. Reduce VAT on micro and small enterprises from 17.5% to 3%. We have delivered. Offer tax incentives to young entrepreneurs. We have delivered. Fix the basics of the government machinery to make it work in acquiring driver's licenses, passports, registering businesses, and so on. We have delivered. Encourage the colleges of education to upgrade their curricula to ensure they produce graduates that will teach well-equipped and critical thinking population. We have delivered. Undertake a national audit of skills and competencies in a bid to align training opportunities and resources to respond to national and local human resource demands. We have delivered. Ensure proper decentralization of teacher recruitment management. We have delivered. Restore teacher training allowance. We have delivered. Restore allowances to Arabic instructors. We have delivered. Restore book and research allowances to lecturers. we have delivered. Introduce history of Ghana as a subject in primary schools, we have delivered. Integrate school sports as part of school activities, we have delivered. Abolish the payment of utility bills by students, we have delivered. Redefine basic education from kindergarten to include senior high school, covering vocational and agricultural and technical schools, we have delivered. Implement free SHS, we have delivered. Increase the amount of loans to the student loan scheme, we have delivered. Develop the 10-year power master plan to meet the medium-term, long-term needs, energy needs, we have delivered. End Dumso, we have delivered. Reduce electricity tariffs, we have delivered. Ensure procurement of new power projects are executed primarily through PPP and IPP arrangements, we have delivered. Ensure there is sufficient reserve margin to ensure stability of our energy system, we have delivered. So this is just a few of those that we have delivered. Ladies and gentlemen, if you put all of this together, and we're making the data available, because it is, of all the three, in all, as I said, we made 388 promises in our manifesto. The most recent validation exercise that we undertook at the end of January 2019 shows that we have either delivered or we are delivering on 78% of our promises. We have either delivered or we are delivering on 78% of our promises. Of course, this 78% is an aggregate figure. You can go to the sectoral breakdown which we provide to show you what we are doing for each sector. You can see that on the economy, we can show you what we have done for each. But if you can go to the percentages for each sector, we can show you that if you look at youth and sports, we have delivered or we are delivering 79%. You go to trade and industry, 82% with 18% pending. Tourism and creative arts, about 46% with 54% pending. Social development, 70%, security, 70%, and so on. Education, 94%, the economy, 80%, chieftaincy, 80%, foreign affairs, 100%, governance, corruption, and public accountability, 53%, health, 65%, infrastructure, 78%. So you can see the breakdown. And all of this, we are going to put it on the internet for everybody to go and interrogate the data themselves. We are going digital. This one is not green book. So the website, we are putting it on the internet. If you go to the website, and everybody can go, it should be live by now, www.delivery.gov.gh, and you will find it. When we outdoor our infrastructure data, it will also be there. You will search for infrastructure projects by constituency, by sector, and so on. But for now, we are looking at the manifesto promises, and if you look at the dial, we are at 78%. But this is just after 3 years of work, and we are still working to do more. We are still working to do more. And as I said, this is the first time any government in our democratic dispensation has brought its performance in front of the people to say this is what we promised and this is what we are doing. Ladies and gentlemen, what is undeniable is that there has been a remarkable turnaround in the Ghanaian economy. Over the last 3 years, the difference is one of vision, dedication, and competence. We have outperformed the NDC in virtually every sphere of the economy. I mean every sphere. We have appropriately combined economic theory as taught in our textbooks with the collective experience of the economic management team and cabinet under the leadership of the President, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, in the management of the economy. Can you imagine, ladies and gentlemen, can you imagine an engineer, a doctor, a lawyer, or an accountant who, after qualifying, decides not to use what they learned in school? Say, forget about everything you learned in the textbooks when you are actually practicing. Can you imagine that? Unfortunately, if you don't take your time and read and understand your textbooks in a subject like economics, you will end up mismanaging the economy with a confirmed economic management techniques with disastrous results. Isn't it? If you don't read your textbooks and understand them well, we have seen it. You end up with a confirmed economic management techniques, which will result in disaster. I have no doubt that the NDC will come out and challenge what I have said here today. But when they come out, just ask them to bring contrary data. They shouldn't just talk. They should come with contrary data to contradict what I have said here today. And I bet you, when you challenge them, they will either start insulting you or they will run away to Burkina Faso. That is what is going to happen. Ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, I would like to say that even though we have made a solid start, and it is a start, in our 3 years in office, we are not yet where we want Ghana to be. We have done a lot. We've established the Zongo Development Fund and all of that. Major things. But we are not yet where we want to be. We still have more to do. This year has been designated by the President as the year of roads, and the country will soon see evidence of this. We have many more schools and hospitals to construct. We have malaria to eradicate. We have jobs to create, the digitization agenda to complete, and so on. We also need to consolidate the gains that we have made so far. We will be the first to admit that we have not attained perfection in everything that we have done. But we are modernizing and transforming this country in fundamental ways for the future. So please, keep faith with us. Keep faith with the President, Nana Akufo-Addo. The future is bright if we stay the course. That is why we are asking the good people of Ghana to give Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo 4 more to do more for you. Thank you for your attention. God bless you, and God bless.
And that's Vice President Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia sharing what has been described as a photographic and data-based result of the socio-economic successes of the country under President Akufo-Addo. Is the town hall meeting underway in Kumasi. My name is Mama Vioso Abuaje. It's not over yet, except that I'm handing you over to Daniel Datsi. There's more. There's a Q&A session coming up, Daniel.
Thank you very much, Mama View. Quite an interesting presentation there by the Vice President. You find that, you know, in his communication style, you find that he pulls no punches when it comes to speaking to the opposition NDC, but there still seems to be an effort to address the campaign promises that we made to the people of Ghana. So you find the man Bawumia trying to strike that balance. And I think that entering the election year, Mama V, we will see a lot more of this, where he tries to assume that role of the economist, the sole academic that was introduced to us in